Tanner says I'm 20 years old. I'm an actor living in Los Angeles with my parents. I only have $500 a month in rent and I have no debt. I skipped college because I went straight from high school into acting. I've got 30,000 in a brokerage account and I have one individual stock which is Palantir that I got close to $24 a share. I have $7,000 in my Roth IRA, 5,000 in crypto, and I just wrapped a film last month and expect to make $20,000 from it. I'd love your advice on how I should think about distributing out this money. I want to invest a sizable chunk for the future, but I also want to keep some cash on hand for audition coaching, acting classes, some living expenses, and other costs. Since my income varies project to project, I'm never quite sure on how much to save versus to spend. Of course, I want to build a $100,000 base, but I'm really hesitant about putting a large chunk of this income, like $10,000 for example, into the volatile stock market today. Robert, what do you think is Tanner's best approach for having these large chunks of cash deposited to his checking account at such a young age and trying to balance investing with self-development and forecasting for the future?
Yeah, I love it. Great job, Tanner. This is so cool. We get these questions for younger people because I see it every day where there's people in their late 30s and 40s that are still kicking the can down the road and not setting themselves up for success financially. So I love the fact that you are actually considering already at your age, what should I be doing with this money? How much should I put towards self-development? How much should I invest? In this situation with this $20,000 coming in, I look at it, I would go right to the public high yield cash account. I'd open that up, get that 4.5%, whatever it's making right now. And then I would take the other part of that and you could either put it there or keep it on hand in your checking account or your traditional brokerage account because you have access to that money anytime you want it. And I would get that invested because we always want to try and see everyone dollar cost averaging, even during a time when the markets are volatile, because it'll just keep you invested and prevent you from trying to time the market. So that's what I would probably do. I'd keep 10 in the high yield cash account, 10 into the traditional brokerage account to keep building that to get you closer to your base. And then with every single time you get a payday, keep doing the same thing. Because you don't want to have too much in high yield cash. You want a couple months, maybe 3-4 months worth of your total expenses, but also in your case, maybe a little more. So you have the money available for the coaching. You have the money available for some of these things. Maybe it's travel to go do an audition or whatever. So that's what I would do in your situation and just really appreciate that you're crushing it and you're setting yourself up so well by doing all the things we talk about on a daily basis.
I totally agree. Tanner is doing a great job for 20 years old. Guess who didn't have 30K in his brokerage account at 20? This guy, right? So Tanner, you are doing great, my friend. This is the framework that I like to share when it comes to people who are self-employed and have unpredictable income. I'm going to just share the general framework. It doesn't exactly apply for Tanner because he's only paying $500 a month in rent, lives with his parents, things like that. But for other people listening right now who are self-employed, hopefully this framework can help you. The framework is this: figure out on a monthly basis exactly how much you need to spend to live your life, right? So for me, for example, I need to spend just about $7,000 a month and my life is good, right? If I spend $7,000 a month, my bills get paid, I get to hang out with my friends, I'm eating great, groceries, utilities, my phone bill, my streaming services, right? 7K a month and life is good. And so when it comes to these windfalls of cash via, you're self-employed, maybe you have commission only, projects, things like that, bonuses, how you should be treating those windfalls of cash is how many months of spending does this windfall cover? So for example, I always think that if you have very unpredictable income, truly unpredictable, right? It's like it's a commission on a sale or like you're a realtor selling homes or maybe you are an actor in Los Angeles. I like to encourage people to have 6 months of expenses saved, set to the side, because you could go 6 months without selling a house or 6 months without getting that next audition. Like that could very well happen, which is why we say 3 to 6 months of expenses. 3 if you've got a very stable job, 6 if you've got more commission-based, unpredictable thing. So in my instance, having $42,000 sitting in an emergency fund, 6 months of expenses would make sense for me, right? Assuming that I was a completely self-employed person, that it was on commission only, recently and I couldn't predict my income. So the framework of switching the, oh, I've got this money coming in, how do I spend it? And switching that framework in that mindset now to, here's how much I spend on a monthly basis. If I have a $30,000 windfall, how many months of expenses, normal spending, does that buy me? And if it buys me, more than however much I have in my savings account to replenish it back up to that 42,000 or 6 month threshold, then that addition is what you can go invest, or that addition is what you can go save elsewhere, put in a sinking fund for your whatever else, right? And so when it comes to your situation, Tanner, you unfortunately are kind of an anomaly here. So I can't give you like too much of this framework because you're only paying $500 a month in rent. You're not really like, you're living with your parents. So it's a little different there. So I am going to lean into what Robert said, which is like, yeah, put 10, maybe $15,000 set aside into a high yield cash account on public, assuming these auditions and acting classes and some other expenses that go into self development could be a little bit more expensive. You're already doing a wonderful job when it comes to your brokerage account and your Roth IRA. The only thing at this point that I would focus on when it comes to investing, like straight up, you have to do it, is the Roth IRA. I think the bridge account is like a cherry on top. I think the crypto is like a cherry on top. Definitely do the Roth IRA, because at 20 years old, every dollar that you're investing right now into your Roth IRA turns into $35, $45, $50 at 65 and 70 years old. So literally, by putting thousands of dollars into this account, you're making hundreds of thousands over the next 40, 50 years because of compound interest.
This really illustrates for me, and we talk about it daily, that so much of America lives beyond their means. And we talk about this all the time. And, thinking about Tanner living with his parents and having $500 a month rent, I don't care if you're 20, 30, or 40 years old. If you don't have yourself set up financially where you're going to be able to achieve financial freedom at some point and retire well and be able to have dignity and live the life you want to live, you have to make that consideration at some point in your career. You just do. Whether it's 20 years old, 30, 40, sometimes 50 years old, you can't keep kicking the can down the road and living beyond your means, because at some point you're going to run out of gas and you're going to be in a tough situation. So I love these illustrations of the $500 a month, because I'll tell you what, if you can find a place that's suitable for your lifestyle, but it's a hack or a way to save money on your overall expenses, whether it's not buying the new car and buying an older car for a few years, or house hacking with someone where you're renting a room instead of having your own place, I strongly suggest doing that, because it just gives your money more time to compound over a longer period of time to allow you to have more financial freedom later on. I think we talked about this in last week's episode, where I told everyone the time to really buckle down is in your 20s and 30s, because then it sets you up for your 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. And most people do it backwards. They mess around till they're 35, then they start to get serious about their money. And I think that is a huge mistake, and people should look at it more seriously in their younger years, because it'll just set them up way better later on in life.
To piggyback on that though, Robert, I think it's important though to make sure people in their 40s, 50s, and even 60s that are, feeling behind with their money doesn't always mean they are behind with their money. For example, maybe you have an encore career, right? Maybe retirement looks a little bit different than sitting on a beach and drinking margaritas all day. Maybe it means that you're 67 and you just love music, and you've been, this weird passion for music. So you go be a music teacher at your local elementary school. Or maybe you're in your early 70s and you've had this passion for baking, and so you're working over at Publix in their bakery. Like, I don't know what it means for you specifically, because a lot of people have different passions and things that get them up in the morning and get them excited. But sometimes retirement, and I'd assume Robert and I are going to do the same thing, means working 10, 15, 20, 25 hours a week doing things we love to do, because it doesn't feel like work at that time, right? I absolutely love what I do, and Robert loves what he does, and at the end of the day, like, we could probably retire right now if we wanted to, right? But we don't, because this is great and we love it. And it's this awesome opportunity. And I want to encourage people who are in their 40s and 50s and 60s, and they're feeling the pressure of not having invested or buckled down in their 20s or 30s, to know that, one, it's never too late to start. You can go put 10, 50, 100, $500 in one of these brokerage accounts and just get started with the S&P 500. Go open up that retirement account for the first time at 53. Doesn't matter. But getting started, getting invested, and having a plan. The most important thing to realize, and I see this all the time with people who are the most successful folks that I've ever met, they do not drift through life. Right? They forecast. We talked about this. You just talked about this. Wealthy people forecast, broke people react. And that's not just like when it comes to your money, that can also mean your career, your relationships, different milestones you want to achieve physically or mentally, right? But forecasting and having a plan and not drifting through life is how people become very effective and very successful in general. And so we just want the show to be the hope that people need, even in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, to realize that it's not too late. You can go get started, and we're here to help you along the way.
Let me linger on that for just a little bit longer, because I love it when you define broke people, but I want to take it a little step further. There are a lot of people out there that are broke because they're living beyond their means, not because they're poor, not because they're not making money. So many people have good jobs. You know who you are, but because you have too much house, too much car, too much spending, and you're not forecasting, you're not getting ahead, and you're not setting yourself up. So I wanted to linger on that for a minute, because there are millions and millions of people living beyond their means out there right now that are broke because of their habits and their lack of forecast. So I want to make sure we clear that up, because I think a lot of people look at broke as being poor, and they're totally different things.
I entirely agree, and I'll even take it one step farther. I think of poor and broke as this. I think people who are poor are, to your point, they're low earners. They might have a victim mindset. They've sort of gone like, Eeyore is their spirit animal. Like they're just not feeling good about anything in their life. And that's like one side of the equation. Broke, in my opinion, are people who are go-getters. They are, victors, not victims. They want to go be more, but they don't have any money. And to your point, they don't have any money because either their extended lifestyle or, whatever. Like, being broke is not the same thing as being poor. Being broke just means you don't have it right now, but like you've got that mental fortitude to say, I know where I'm going and how to get there, and I'm going to go do it. I just don't have it right now, but I'm going to go figure it out, right? That's just broke. I've been broke. Robert's been broke. We've all been broke. But in my opinion, right, being poor is like that sort of victim mentality. I don't make that much money. I'll never make this much money. You guys are always talking about stuff that doesn't apply to me. People out of my neighborhood have never made it. Why should I? People that look like me have never made it, so why should I ever make it, right? I think that's poor. I want to encourage everyone to not be poor, to just be broke. If you are broke, be a broke person in the sense that, hey, I don't got it right now, but I know I will have it, and I know where I'm going, and I've got the resources around me and the tools to go do it. I just got to go do it. And that's, in my opinion, the difference there. It's a big mindset shift.